I met him when I was 18, and I began in the year later, in 34, I began analysis with him. We went out there to the tower, and out of the bushes suddenly we were standing around kind of, you know, awkwardly as one does, not knowing what was going to happen. And then out of the bushes came a man, and I was deeply impressed by him. I thought naturally he was a Methuselah, because when you are 18 you think a 58-year-old is ready for the cemetery. He told that story, which you can read in the memories, about this girl who was on the moon and had to fight a demon, and the black demon got her. And he pretended, he told it in a way as if she really had been on the moon and it had happened. And I was very rationalistically trained from school, so I said indignantly, but she imagined to be on the moon, or she dreamt it, but she wasn't on the moon. And he looked at me earnestly and said, yes, she was on the moon. I still remember looking over the lake there and thinking, and either this man is crazy or I am too stupid to understand what he means. And then suddenly it dawned on me, he means that what happens psychically is the real reality. And this other moon, this stony desert which goes around the earth, that's illusion, or that's only pseudo-reality. And that hit me tremendously deeply. When I crawled rather drunk into bed because he gave us a lot of Burgundy, that evening I thought it'll take you 10 years to digest what you experience today.
Both Jung and I minded most of all about wholeness, about becoming whole, and that I got at it through my art by always trying to draw or paint things that looked whole, animals, primitives, anything that seemed still at one with itself and whole. And he got at it by studying the things that were wrong with people, and then realizing the way to get it right was to find their wholeness, to find the opposite to the thing that was destroying them so terribly. And of course I went through tremendous encounter with the unconscious. One always does in analysis, particularly with him. He didn't let you pick flowers by the way, sort of.
When you met him in the club, or when you met him privately or in analysis, it was always a man interested in the, I would like to use a word, in the supernatural food. Always. Yeah. Into the depths. And you see, you could come into his room in analysis. And he was just speaking about the dreams you had before, last night. Not knowing them, but he was involved. He was so transparent for people. And that was a fascinating thing in the relationship with Jung. Therefore, everybody who knew Jung had the feeling he speaks one's own language.
We started talking, and I went home with him afterwards. And to Mrs. Jung's despair, we sat talking until about 3 o'clock in the morning without break. And again, I had this very strange feeling, although it was snowing outside, bitterly cold, that I was sitting round one of the first fires in a camp somewhere in the bush in Africa, talking, as you can only talk in those conditions. And I said to him, why don't you come back to Africa with me? He said, you know, when I came back from Mount Elgon and from Kenya and living amongst the witch doctors of Africa, he said, I found so much witchcraft in Switzerland I felt that I had to deal with all this witchcraft first before I could, before I can travel again. And he used to refer to himself as an old witch doctor. Very often when people asked him, are you a Protestant? Are you a Catholic? He said, don't ask me these questions. He said, I'm only an old African who finds his God in his dreams. And he really meant that. He really meant that. He had this tremendous human, almost animal warmth and immediacy. It was the immediacy of the laugh that got one.
Schopenhauer said that humor was the only divine quality of man. And that Basel helped him with a lot. The Baslers have an extraordinary sense of humor. And their carnival is really marvelous.
Jung took you there once to the
Yes, he did. A lot of us, we went there the night before and got up at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, I think, to see the so-called Morgenstreich. And the procession comes through with lights. It's most impressive.
This feeling that he had, that if man lived his life religiously, if he lived his life symbolically, then it was almost as if